taking off, do's and don'ts and tips. And before we do that, there's one thing I'd like to explain that I didn't quite touch on before when I was explaining how this spreadsheet, as I call it, area works. And that is basically that this length, width and height column that appears in Bluebeam by default. This will pre-populate with the data from an area tool. So for instance, that one that you can see highlighted there by the bounding box and the nodes, that's the side dimension of the width and the height for that shape. So don't confuse that. So that's why they're now turned off. We're only concerned with the area tool as we measured it. So that can cause a bit of confusion. So be mindful of that. And the reason I'm differentiating between that now and I didn't do it previously is I've got these custom columns that I've created over here that manipulate data in a way you may find useful when we look at this plan taking off. So let's move on to that. So let's calibrate this drawing here. And I'll talk you through a couple of do's and don'ts or tips on plan taking off. So we'll calibrate and we'll go 3.72. So we're now calibrated. Let's just check that. Near enough. Right. Let's go for this internal 215 block work we've got inside here. Let's find out 215 internal block work tool. And I've got it here. So let's try a couple of dims in here. Now I don't know about you, but on a one-off job like this, I wouldn't always spend the time taking off, deducting the doors. Conversely, I just wouldn't measure the hoisting and bedding of the lintel. But if you are going to go down that route and you need to go down that route, what I suggest you do is create an inverse tool. So you've got the 215 partitions here. I've basically got a deduct tool for the same, and all I need to do is go in and put that dim in there. It's contrasted so I can see. So you can see in my subject window, I've got my 215s, and when I export that into Excel, I can put my story height in there, and I've got my deduct for my 215s. What I've done, I've created a custom column here just as a bit of an aid memoir. So I could put in here the height of that door that I've deducted at 2.1. There is a way of making this column here add that up, and I'll come onto that in a few minutes. But again, applying the same principle, this particular job I took off the cavity work through the wall elevationally, and what you might notice is the majority of it is 100mm inner skin, but there are certain areas where the planks are bearing that I've got a thicker wall on the inner leaf. So I would just need to add that as an extra over. So I've got an extra over tool for additional thickness. So additional thickness, I've got this as 100mm, but you can call it create a tool to suit. So all I would do there is very similar to what I've just done with the deduct. I'll measure that pier. I will measure the opening. That pier. Round to there. And the reason I'm doing it separately is so that I can go and put my height in separately for each one, rather than have to redo the deduct, because it's only an extra over. So for instance, I've got that pier at say 3.2 story height, that opening at the remainder, what's left above the lintel. So it's probably, I don't know, say it's 600 left, 0.6. Whereas that pier there is my full story height. And again, once you export that data, you can manipulate it in the spreadsheet window. I'll show you quickly how to create a custom column also that can take that height and that length and actually give you a result here before you export it. Sometimes it's handy, but again, I find it's information overload, because 9 times out of 10 I know what I've taken off in the takeoff window, and I'm going to manipulate it in Excel once I get it into Excel myself. But the way you go about creating a custom column, and it's the same for this column here. I've called this measurement height because the inbuilt width and height columns only apply to areas on this. How you would do that, you go to columns, you go to the cog manage, and you'll see once you open up the dialog there are custom columns that I've created, and they're created in the custom columns tab. Surprise. If I just modify that, so what you do, you name the column. So I've named it measurement height, and you tell it type of column it is. It's a number. You can have a text column, date, formula. We'll come on to formula in a minute. That's what the result column's based on, but this is number. And that's basically it. What you do need to do is save to profile once you've created it. Otherwise, what'll happen, it will be available for use during the session you're taking off in, but when you come back to Bluebeam next time, it won't be there. You'll have to do it again. So that's how you create your own custom measurement height tool that will accept input, and it accepts the input by double clicking on it and just typing directly in. Show you how that custom result column works. Custom column result. I've already done it, but what I'll do, I'll go through the process of how I originally created it. Modify. So I've named it result, and I've told it that it's a formula. And what we need to do is start typing, and the variables that are available will present themselves as a drop-down list for you to pick from. So if I pick measurement, and then I put, this is like you would do if you would write the syntax in a spreadsheet, measurement times my custom measurement height, set the decimal places, include it in the totals, and click OK. Save it to profile. OK. Now do you see the way that automatically calculated the 1.349 by the 3.2 and gave me a result? That will all be exported into Excel. It's a really handy tool if you like to work in that fashion. But again, be aware that the more you export in this fashion, the more you've got to manipulate once you get it out into the spreadsheet. So bear that in mind. Counting. Again, supposing we had some fire stocks we wanted to count. Find the count tool. Oh, I haven't got my tools switched on. Okay, so there we go. Let's do padstones instead. So we've got padstone there. We've got a padstone opposite. And that's a 140 padstone, that's a 215 padstone. Again, you've got the ability to pick your padstone, and you can either, because it's a count, you can do like we did with the polylength tool and split all. And what that will do, it'll count down each instance of the padstone. And as you'll see, as I click through each individual one, it will highlight in the window. So that's that one. You can see it bolded out. That's the other one. Now I can just label these. I can put 140 thick padstone, and I can put in there 215 thick padstone. So it's a way of annotating the differences between similar items, and you can go right through the whole ground floor doing all of those as you need. So as I said, you might want to watch these couple of videos more than once just to get the gist of it. But when we go through the taking off exercise, the guided taking off exercise, these all should ring bells as we do what we need to do. So we'll see you in the next video.